and welcome to the final episode of season 2 of Let's Talk Weekly. Yay, we made it to at the end of season 2, although it's been a rough season, but we're glad y'all stuck with us. And to close off our season, we have the lovely Dom Jones. Hello, Dom. How are you doing?
Good to be here.
And of course, I am Gray.
And I'm Thomas.
And let's get things started. All right, so Dom, go ahead and refresh the memory of our audience, who you are, what you're doing. I hear you're running for Congress.
Yes, I'll be brief, but the last time I was here, we were having discussions. I think it was prior or right after I launched my run for Congress. I can't recall. But yes, I am a congressional candidate for CA 47 in Orange County, servicing the Orange County coastline and the 6 cities here along the Orange County coastline here. I previously ran for Huntington Beach City Council. And I'm a community leader. I'm a business owner. I am an entrepreneur. I'm an activist and a social justice advocate very much for the LGBTQIA plus community. So yes, whoop whoop. I also am an avid civil rights activist as well, because in Orange County, being less than 2% African American, and also having quite an unfortunate history with racial struggles. I live in Huntington Beach, so I'm very active here in trying to build up with my gym that I own as well, community unity. I'm also involved in the media. I work with entertainment. I recently also have started my own television show called The Dom Jones Show. So that's coming to us soon. So a lot of good things happening, but more importantly, really just in the work of service and helping us have a more united country.
That's awesome, Dom. And I just wish every single person in government was like that. And you know what's really cool, guys, about today's discussion, we're going to be talking about electoralism, our electoral system, and how it gets stuff done versus community action, the power of the people, and which one is more like which one basically gets more shit done. And what's interesting about you, Dom, is that you are running for Congress. You're getting your feet into the electoral system. But you're also a community activist. So I think that's really cool. And we're going to share your experience on that in just a bit. Now, I just want to open up this question before, as we start, is when you hear those two words, like let's start with the electoral system. Like, what are your current feelings towards this current electoral system? Dom, I'll go ahead and start with you.
Sure. Yes. So currently, the electoral system is comprised of what is considered to be the Electoral College. Okay, so that's a group of electors that are placed in that position of power. There are often electors that are elected from already currently elected officials, senators, congresspeople, people in positions of power who already hold a lot of sway, and they are in a position to then kind of vote. And the idea is that, let's say, for example, there's a presidential election, you have the popular vote, and then you have the Electoral College. Well, the popular vote, as it's been titled, is what the people vote, right? It's the votes that we're all told to get out there, vote, vote, vote. So you go out there, you vote. That vote is separate from the Electoral College. Now, the balance is said that, well, however the state swings, the Electoral College will generally go that way. But first off, that's not always the case. In fact, we've had multiple situations where that has not happened. And there's cases that have had to go to the Supreme Court to be adjudicated, if you will, because the popular vote was out of harmony with what the Electoral College was trying to push. The reality is this: if we're a true democracy, the popular vote, the vote of the people, is the only vote that should matter. There shouldn't be another vote.
Yeah, right? I agree.
Yeah, so that's
Thomas,
my thought.
Thank you. And Thomas, I wanted to get your perspective because in the UK, it's a completely different system from ours. What is your when, like I said, like when you hear the electoral process or electoralism, does it differ between the two countries you've been in?
Yeah, in the UK is a parliamentary system. It's not all in wins all sort of scenario. So in the US, even if you got 50.01% of the vote, it's a take all win all situation. Whereas in a
Mhm.
parliamentary system, it's more of a balanced. The powers are more balanced and sharing, which is why you end up in scenarios where the government can't form because it doesn't have enough. It doesn't have enough percentage of the vote to form a government.
Mhm.
So what usually happens in the parliamentary system is that if a government can't form, it'll try and broker a deal with another party in order to form a government. And
Mhm.
so, it's meant to create a situation where it doesn't allow like one side to swing too like radically in a certain direction if 30% of the electorate only votes for that party.
Mhm.
So it can become a fairer system, but unfortunately, like a lot of these things, we're still and UK is still backwards with a House of Lords situation where you have unelected officials like in seats, and again, America is currently in this trajectory where, like you said, you have electors and you have a popular vote, and you've basically got, do you want a democracy? Do you not want a democracy?
Mhm.
And that's what it's coming down to. And right now you've got people, sort of conservatives will make the argument, well, this is a republic, not technically a democracy, and they're kind of just saying it outright that they could, that they would
Mhm.
love to end democracy or the percent or any sort of semblance of what a democracy would look like.
Yeah, and here that perfectly segues my opinion on this electoral system, because we got to remember this government was written by men who, no offense, Thomas, look more like you than us two. But these men did not intend for Dom and I to participate in this government. They did not intend for that to happen at all. So to pretend that they were actually, or to even think that they were actually creating a government in the best interests of the people is just naive. Um, Also, when you have an entire branch of government that is completely undemocratic, you got to really realize and say, you know what, maybe we should change that. Um, and I mean, that goes for every government that's existed for more than 250 years. Times have changed. We're not riding on horse and buggy. We are not churning our own butter, although I really want to learn how to. But that's beside the case. So like it definitely needs an upgrade, in my opinion. Um, and what really bothers me is that we live in a two-party system. Things are not just black and white, folks. You know, um, we need like probably closer to a five-party system at least, one that covers the far left, the center, the right, and the far right. Because we can't just have this umbrella party where you can just say, yeah, yeah, we can let the radicals in, the Nazis in here. Yeah, they're cool. No, it doesn't work like that. They're not your friend. Bernie, Joe is not your friend. Anyway, now let's move on to community action. When we hear community action, I typically hear the civil rights movement. I hear we're on the street, we're with our picket signs, we're demanding change. And throughout history, we've seen that change happen because of those protests. Um, Now, Dom, I want to move the question to you because you're running for Congress, but you're also a community activist. How does your experience, like, go ahead and highlight your experience for us?
Well, I truly believe that community action and working at a core community level is essential. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you have community members working together in collaboration with one another, they can firsthand address the issues that they are going through because they know, because they are of the community, they are
Mm-hmm.
living it day in and day out. And together, they can work in tandem and move forward and then galvanize others around them in the community. And actually, what often happens in my experience is that it expands. And I'll give you an example. For example, when I started my business, it's a wellness studio, but it's a place where people come to feel whole and connected and to themselves and to be united. Well,
Mm-hmm.
it's a community effort, okay? And as we have gone over the years, what has happened is that collectively as a community, what's happened? We've expanded, we've worked together, we've moved out, and now it's become something that the entire community embraces in different kinds of ways. And now we have a whole system, an ecosystem of wellness and health in our community because we're
Mm-hmm.
working together on the ground. So that's an example of that. If you think about it in terms of moving policy forward and getting legislation done for the community, honestly, people tend to focus so much on presidential elections, right? The main
Oh.
elections, and you know
Mm-hmm.
it, Gray. You know, it's that's always the focus. You know why? Because that's always in the news cycle. But what they don't focus on is the local elections. It's the school board. It's the water board. These things are important. It's their city council because these kinds of elected officials directly impact them. Now, what's the best way to not only be engaged about what's happening in your community, but to also be a part of the change and the activism?
Mm-hmm.
It is to be a community advocate and a community activist. The way to do that is to connect to your neighbors, see what's important, and work together. I'm a firm believer that community action is really the vanguard, if you will, of
Mm-hmm.
really the ultimate positive growth of anything that can result from any community.
Yes, we, as much as we don't like our neighbors, they playing their music. No, but we do really need to connect together as a community more. And like one of the things that really scares me as a society, as at least an American society, is that whole American dream bullshit. I remember we've talked about this on the show in the past, Thomas, but like we're so individualistic as a country, like how much money I can make, what how many houses that I can buy because potentially I can be a billionaire one day. And that's not the case.
Well,
Thomas, go ahead and give me your opinion.
it's in the fabric of everything. Like think
Mhm.
about it. Like here, for example, prime example is work, right? No one knows each other's wages. No one knows how much each other's paid because it's purposely
Mhm.
kept secret. And the idea of actually discussing that with each other is taboo in the workplace. And it's even, they'll make you believe that it's something that you can't do when actually legally you're allowed to do.
Mhm.
But it's just the fab here. I think there's been so much, like there's been so many compounding things, and the media is also responsible, really responsible for this. And there's just been a lot of like bombardment of like distrust anyone who is around you, like distrust even your neighbors, even like people don't even want to talk to like who they live next to on and
Mhm.
there's no sense of community, or like it's made to feel like you can't even don't even know who you're living next to. It's just a
Mhm.
this level of distrust is not it's
There
in
was
the long
one
run.
glimmer and it was the start of the pandemic
Yeah,
because that was the first time I ever spoke to my neighbor and we're friends.
yeah,
Like I don't live there anymore, but I was actually friends with my neighbor. We did the whole, hey, you got some butter, you got some sugar, like some like literally straight out of the 50s. And it was nice. And I was like, I really wish we were like that as a society. And I feel like, the country as a whole would be better if we just were more communal and less individualistic. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah, I just wanted to tack on to that and to say the individualism has become a part of our own toxic soup. It's the reason why we as a nation in America are devolving. It's because we have become so mired in the self. In fact, so
Mm-hmm.
much so, and I know this might get into another topic, but I'll just touch it, of the ego. we become so consumed in our own
Mhm.
ego, in our own kind of, like you said, success and getting rich and all these other things. And when we do this, it creates a lot of divisions. Like you said, you love being able to connect with your neighbor, like you said in the 50s, sugar and things like this. We don't have that kind of harmony at all anymore. And
Mhm.
what happens is that when we become so in our own silos, and as Thomas mentioned, the media really just bombards us with everything they want us to suffocate on psychologically. What happens is that we become really good fodder for dictators. That's
Oh,
what happens.
you said it. You said it. I need a
Because
bell.
And I said it, Gray, because everyone wants to beat around the bush and call it everything else but what it is. Okay.
Mm.
What we have seen happen in America is America devolving and slowly moving towards an autocracy, as Thomas said, debating if we want to be a democracy. And it's symptomatic. Donald Trump, I'll say the man who shouldn't be named, but we'll say his name because we must call it what it is. He
Mhm.
exploited the fears of so many people in this nation, and he caused this nation to go back towards its original sin with and that embodies racism. I'm just going to be very real with you.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
And so all of these things, the individualism, the I, the me, the ego, the division, the this, is created a state in which in other nations, the United States is no longer seen as a top democracy.
Yeah. No, literally, it ranks 25th as best democracy when we're supposed to be the OG people, the ones that everyone's supposed to look to. That's not a good look, you know. It really isn't. Now I'm gonna move over to the topic, still talking about community action. When it's made the most change, it's been violent, you know, and because no justice, no peace, you know. Literally, how can you say, you know, keep the peace when people are dying? How can you say keep the peace when people are being thrown into prison, dying because they don't have access to healthcare, even access to healthcare? I'm just gonna throw it out there. Whoever wants to throw their thoughts on that, go ahead.
I think there has to be a line, right? And I think everyone's gonna have that different opinion on where that line is drawn. But like my line is, if people if there is systemic targeting and the state and the people who control the state, because it really comes down to whether the state is by and for the people and doing what is good and necessary for the people. They want a monopolization on violence. They want you to believe there's a monopolization on violence. But the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that, there's got to be a line in terms of, well, is this action going to lead to me and others like me dying, or there's no future? And I think that's what's happening right now. You see it with the Stop Oil campaigns in Europe and UK on environmentalism. You're seeing it well here as well with with the pipelines, and and you saw it with George Floyd. Non-violence, and look, non-violence as a tool is great for getting a message out to the media, getting people knowing what's happening on the ground. But it's becoming so blatant now. Like prime example right now is the writers and actors strike, and the executives just blatantly coming out and saying what they would have in the past said behind closed doors, but saying that they wish for people to lose their homes and their rental properties. They want to wait out the strike to starve people.
And they
Now,
have the audacity to say that, but
Yeah.
also say that what the SAG and writers are asking for is unrealistic.
Right.
but they
Right.
wouldn't they wouldn't feel, like I said, they feel comfortable enough in their positions and
Mm-hmm.
where they are to say this outright now, whereas before it used to be, you know, in a dark, smoke-filled room behind closed doors, these things would have been
Mm-hmm.
discussed, not publicly, but because they feel so emboldened. And it's not just, you know, this is systemic. It's not just Hollywood execs. This is people who own the train lines with the when we had the railway strike. This is the same with people. This is the same with Flint, Michigan, with the water crisis. Like people, they were just so blatant about, you know, with like, oh, it's okay, you can drink the water, it's safe. No, it's not safe. And it's
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, it's just the blatancy of it all now, because they feel that they have a sense of immunity to it all. There's no consequences for their actions. And I think it really comes down to what, you know, where's the line drawn in this? Like when's
Yeah.
enough? And I think just the threat of retaliation, you know, there's got to be a line when it comes to this. Like what is
Mm-hmm.
acceptable? Is people being kicked out of their homes and starving to death? Is that the line? Because people in Hollywood execs think they can just do that and say that and go along with it, and people will be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Dom, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with Thomas on this. Yesterday I was actually, with some actors, and they were discussing this, and they talked about the comment that you all made about what these studio executives have said. And as I was talking to them, it's something that we talked about, which is the state that our country is in, which is experiencing a lack of diffusion of power, an extreme consolidation of power at the top, resulting in corporate tyranny. So what's happened in America, and what's happening, quite frankly, all over the world in many different countries, it's this
Mm-hmm.
corporate tyranny where corporations have such an abundance of power. They are the only ones that are in a position now to influence policy. And how it's gotten to be that way is because constantly, how has it happened? Lobbyists and corporate interests have come together, and they've worked together to support one another and give each other a nice little cozy bed. And in doing so, not at all caring about the people that they affect. You're talking about what's happening with the Hollywood strikers, the actors and the writers. Well, the actors and the writers are fighting because now corporate studios do not want to pay actors for residuals on streaming, because streaming now is the new
Mm-hmm.
form of entertainment. See?
It is.
It just is. So they're like, well, we should get residuals from the streaming. Well, the producers and the companies, they don't want to do that. They in AI, they want to use the actor's likeness, put it on a body, and don't have to pay the actor.
That one really scared the crap out of me, because first of all, how dare you use my likeness, or without, or someone else's likeness, not using my likeness, but they're using someone else's likeness without their permission, getting scanned and not being told why they're getting scanned. I think that is so, like, such a violation of, like, a person as a whole. It is disgusting.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have this happening, Greg, on a consistent level long enough, this is what makes way for autocratic rulership. You see, it honestly naturally makes way for it. So, when you're talking about in relation to, the violence and the things of this sort, I go back to like Martin Luther King, and a lot of people, reference him in terms of being a peaceful person. And he was a believer in coming together and working together. Martin Luther King, not just Malcolm X, he was also a believer. And sometimes you have to make some noise. Sometimes you have to
Yes.
rabble rouse
Mm-hmm.
to get things done. And
Well,
so I believe that a noise has to be made. Uncomfortable circumstances need to be created sometimes for people to pay attention, as we have seen recently in the Black Lives Matter movement, and stop Asian hate. But honestly, what happens is, like, because we're living in a news cycle, it stops, people forget, and nothing ever gets changed and done. So we need to really keep our foot on the gas pedal and continue to foster and encourage the change. And the movement needs to keep getting bigger and wider so that we don't just kind of rabble rouse and say a few words and things like that. But then the Supreme Court goes and does its thing with Roe v. Wade and with affirmative action. And then here we are for the next how many years because they're not taking off the Supreme Court. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, and not only that, there is one more thing that I wanted to bring up when it comes to like making noise is that we as an American society, we can only make so much more noise. We don't have the privilege like we do, like our European siblings do, because they don't have a militarized police. We cannot make noise like we can't go like do what France does and cause a hissy fit because the retirement age was raised by 2 years. We can't do that. If we did that, we get shot.
But see, the thing is with Europe and what's happening is because, it's systemic. Europe, a lot of European countries historically have all these like social safety net protections because they didn't align with what you would call, completely free market capitalism. But the problem is it's capitalism eats itself. And what's happening is all these European countries are suddenly in this situation where they're also being forced into a trajectory of doing things that are just counter to what a state should be doing for its people because they refuse to fix the issue. And the problem is they're also devolving into the monopolization on violence. They're using the state to enact violence. Like France right now, even though historically, yes, they protest against the government and they're continuing to do so, but Macron's government is also now boosting the militarization of the police in response. So they're also going down the trajectory of America with the militarization of the police because they know they like the way things are going. They refuse to fix the problems or to fix the system in any way because it's not in their interests.
Yeah, and it's not in their interest because you can't be in power without oppressing people. They go together.
I've said this before. I'll say it again. You scratch a liberal and you bleed a fascist. And I say this.
Oh, Dom, you should have been there when he said that. Oh,
Really?
it was.
I mean, you're telling the truth, Thomas. It's basically fascist corporatism is what we're seeing. Yeah.
I say this a lot. And
I have a question for you, Thomas. Do you think that the UK is better in their progress than the United States at this point, or do you think they're just in tandem with one another? What is your perspective?
I think the UK is hanging on by a thread when it comes to like the fought and won for sort of social safety net systems that kind of band-aided it all together. But now we're seeing it fully collapse to a point where, like, for example, healthcare is a prime example. Like, we had a functioning healthcare service that actually was for the people and worked and did what it was meant to do. That was the whole point of the formation of the NHS. And slowly and slowly and slowly, it's been stripped and stripped and stripped and stripped because people
they want to move to the corporate model like what we do.
They desperately want to privatize it. They want to make money out of it. And this is a problem. This is a problem with capitalism. It is about profit. It's about enough is never enough. You have to keep making more year on year on year on year. This growth model of it eats itself, and this is what's happening. The UK is suddenly finding itself like we need to grow somehow. We need to make more. We need to make more money. What's the next step? Oh, we go after essential services because that's like a guaranteed income. Everyone needs healthcare. There's nowhere else to go. So what do? We want to strip it bit by bit by bit. And like all these fought for, people, Europe, I think a lot of Europeans took a lot of these things for granted because, their grandparents or their great grandparents fought and won for these rights. And now because of the systemic nature of this system, it's slowly and slowly curtailing and cutting
Well,
these services away for hard fought wins. Um, but that's the same here too with workers'
I was
rights.
just gonna say that, like we got so used to the fact of a 8-hour workday, 5-day work week. We got so comfortable with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. We got so comfortable with these, and we got into this mindset. We'd be like, okay, mission accomplished, we won. No, it's never a win. Like we're it's never a one battle. Like it's the war is constant.
These captors would, if they had their way, they would love to return to slavery. Like they would love
Oh
to
yeah.
return to a time of not
Yes.
having to pay people, like a form of feudalism.
I mean,
And
of course, America became the quote unquote richest country in the world, right? Because you have free labor. If you have free labor, yeah, yeah, that's your biggest overhead. Okay, so you're so right, Tom.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
it's disgusting. It truly is.
but
But going back, oh, go ahead. Go ahead and
no,
finish your
to
thought. I'm so
say the
sorry.
good, I think young people, particularly like, even my generation or and after it, I think one of the things that was kind of, and I guess it's a combination of media and like just education. We're suddenly, going back to the roots of, okay, well, we need to fight this, and you've
Hmm.
got, we haven't seen this type of union action for since 1960s, 50s, probably even before that. Right now, and when I talk to people about unions, unions it's a compromise, because the reality is that, like the Hollywood strike right now, they're going to be back doing this in 20 years' time if they come to an agreement. They'll be back again in 15, 20 years because companies will once again refuse to submit to a contract
And the
negotiation.
technology will change too.
And technology will change and we'll be back to square one. So this is like, they'll be, even if they get a contract agreement out of this, they'll be back again in 15 years
Yeah.
because of the way that we systemically set up. Like, we have a handful of people that own the industry,
Hmm.
and no one owns their own labor, not in this system. And so we're
Yeah.
going to be, so that's why unions are a compromise. It's already a compromise, but we need to go back to the roots of fighting. And I think unionization effort in this country needs to
Hmm.
we need to fight this,
Yeah.
because you know,
Dom, any final thoughts before we end today?
I would like to say on his point about the unions, how we, as you saying, we need to fight for those unions, Thomas, and that's so true. Recently the National Association of Letter Carriers, they endorsed our campaign, and I'm very grateful to them. It's because
Oh,
as union
nice.
workers, I really can see that they do need legislators who are willing to fight for them to stay relevant. Now, I want to say this too: in order for the American people to really pick up the pace and the fire and fight to have unions, Thomas and Gray, we need to be activated and not lazy in our minds and our thinking that this work is left up to someone else. Part of the problem is
Hmm.
that we become, as the American citizenry, very complacent. Very
Hmm.
complacent and very lazy, and kind of honestly thinking democracy will just prop itself up all by itself. And we don't take the time to understand capitalism, the corporate capitalism, entrepreneurial capitalism, oligarchic capitalism, all these different
Hmm.
kinds of state-led capital. There's all kinds of capitalism, and we need to understand where we are on that kind of that wavelength and what's happening. Because and I'll leave it at this: if we don't look at our history, we are
Hmm.
destined to repeat it.
Amen. Yeah, no, for real. Because one of the things that I will just say this as my closing thoughts is that we truly it's hard because it's hard to stay vigilant when, someone who's a single parent working two jobs and supporting their kids. they're really not thinking about the demise of capitalism. They're thinking, how am I going to feed my kids?
That's right.
But I just will leave it at this. Is like, when you have a free time and you see that TikTok that talks about what we're talking about, dig a little deeper if you can. That's all you really can do, and make some noise. Because we can only make some noise if we're all together. Dom, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Let's Talk Weekly. Go ahead and shout out your campaign, where people can find you, and shout out a little bit more of that TV show you mentioned.
Oh, sure. Well, I'm glad to be here with you guys. It's a wonderful Friday, so we are blessed. Yes, the campaign is moving forward. You can find me on Instagram. I have a couple of Instagrams. My first one is Dom, DOM as in Mary Jones .unity. My congressional Instagram is Dom Jones for Congress, and then on my congressional website is domjones.org. In regards to my new show, I'm super excited. It's going to be launching in August. I will kind of throw this in. I know this is a fun fact, but Leo season starts tomorrow, and I'm a Leo. So I'm super excited because it's going to be an epic season. Okay.
Are you in
Um,
August or July,
oh, yeah,
Leo?
August. Okay.
Oh, they're the best ones.
Yes. August 20th. So, but the show is, I don't know if we spoke about this when I was here, but I speak fluent Vietnamese and Tagalog. So I was a missionary and a minister for many years. So I actually recently went on to a network show and I did an interview, did well. I was offered my own show, which is something that I've been working towards because I'm in entertainment and media. And I'm excited because it's going to be the Dom Jones Show, and it's going to be I'm going to be the first ever African American woman ever to be a host of a series show on a Vietnamese network, one of the third largest servicing the Vietnamese community in America here in Southern California.
That's amazing.
Very excited about that, and
That's
we're going to have dual
exciting.
language, but it's going to be fun, and I want to have all kinds of fun things. It's going to be politics, it's going to be health, it's going to be all the things, it's going to be life, it's going to be everything. So.
Oh, well, that sounds amazing. And all that, you're gonna have to send me all that info because it'll be in the description below. Come on,
Yes,
y'all.
absolutely. In the network, I'm sorry, I have to say it is Fabosa TV. So it's very well known in the Little Saigon, Fabosa TV. So that's a network. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us
Thank
for
you, guys.
another season. I'm Gray,
I'm Thomas.
and we'll see you next season. Take care.